the success of the Swamp Thing is kind of amazing, because the horror genre is not one that usually, or am I wrong in that?
Oh, you're right. I think that the horror genre, while it was popular about 10 years ago, in comics at least, I think that Swamp Thing is the only surviving book in the horror field. Now, I find that strange, because as horror comics have lost their popularity, then horror itself seems to have permeated every other art form to excess. The film industry is a whole string of murdered teenagers. You know, I mean, just all these sort of chop 'em up films. You know, I mean, that's not the sort of horror that I like to do, but it is horror, and it seems that people are really crying out for that stuff. I don't know why, you know, when things are so miserable anyway, why they should sort of want something that makes them feel even more depressed, but then that's people for you. You know, I think that, for my part, what you have to do is do horror that actually scares people. Because in comics, I think that a lot, you have people going through the motions. You'll get a funny comic book that is not actually funny. You'll recognise that it's a funny comic book because it's got characters with big noses and big feet, but you could never in a million years laugh at it. And you'll get horror comic books which, although they've got werewolves and vampires and things that go bump in the night in them, then they don't really raise your hackles very much. You know, I think that with Swamp Thing we have tried to do a book which will actually scare its readership, you know, and yeah, it seems that it's working, you know, from what I hear.
To find out what Alan's planning on scaring the readership with in the future, we went to editor Karen Berger.
It's this odyssey that Swamp Thing goes on. It's called The American Gothic, and basically Swamp Thing is going through the dark underside of America in order to save the earth from being destroyed by these spiritual people who live on a different plane of existence. And since Swamp Thing is in touch with spiritual things now, he's the likely candidate to do this. And we're going to be introducing a lot of horror aspects in this as well. We're going to have a couple of vampire stories, a couple of werewolf stories, haunted house stories. And, but it's up to Swamp Thing. I mean, he travels all through America, but he also can come back to the swamp because of his teleportation, organic teleportation abilities now. So he does come back and visit Abby, who's going to be going on trial, actually, for living with a swamp creature. And she's, you know, poor Abby.